Major developments are happening in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies right now in terms of price. We are leading into the close, and by the time you watch this video, you will have the answer to what happens at the weekly close. Now, we've been following this up for weeks upon weeks as the market has been rising into our 50% target, $42,200. This has been an exact repeat of each previous cycle where the market goes up into the 50% and potentially, well, in the last two cases, has been rejected. So by the time we get to the end of this video, we'll have the answer to what's going on in terms of the Bitcoin pullback and what this top in cryptocurrencies feels like. I've got a huge video for you guys looking at the jelly feels of the market and how these tops form. So if you're finding it a little bit hard to follow on and keep up to date, make sure you really do hit the subscribe button. I know I'm getting a little bit desperate on that because as these tops come into the market, it is going to get very serious. There are macro, I'd say permabulls that are going ballistic in the market. They are going to get everyone wrecked. Be warned. All right, like and subscribe. Even if you are warned, we're still going to have a lot of fun along the way. Just don't get caught out by the BS at the tops of the market. I will show you that in today's video using a price chart, the data, the facts of how it happens in real time. I'm getting a little excited by this because it is so fascinating to me to see how it plays out in real time and how we all get caught up in the emotion of it every single cycle. The way we avoid it is by having a plan and sticking to the rules of the plan and removing our emotions. Let's use our profits and enjoy those out of the markets. Anyway, here we are, your home of macro cycle analysis, studying the past to forecast the future, cryptocurrencies, stock markets, indices, commodities, and the real estate cycle. This is what we cover here on the channel, and we're able to do that because we have been studying this for many, many years using specific rules, indicators, signals, in particular, our Gann analysis. All right, guys, I want to start off just with a clarification here. Crypto News has picked up my video from last week, and this analyst, which they're pointing at me here, says why he thinks Bitcoin is nearing its high point for this cycle. If you guys have been following any of my videos, you know that I do not think this is the high point. I think this is the massive disbelief that has been happening in the Bitcoin cycle running up. This is the disbelief. This is not a bear market rally. And I think we're going to have a pullback. Look at this move as we are filming. I might even have to change the title because we've got a few percent drop as we go, and we are leading into this close. So there's a clarification. I think I needed to do that. As you'll see with some of the tweets, people still are a little confused of whether this is a bear market rally or not. And I feel like I've made it pretty damn clear that I do not think this is a bear market rally. Start of the bull market, but we must have healthy corrections in the pullbacks. I got a huge signal for you as well that happened at the peak, and it's happening again in this shorter term move. All right, links in the top of the video description. There is your shill for the beginning of the video. We'll talk more about that later. And for you guys who are following Michael's journey, go and subscribe to his channel. His wife just gave birth on Friday, but he will be back. There has been a few days off here. Michael will be back. He had a baby boy. So congratulations to my brother and a new nephew there. All right. Let's get into it. NASDAQ hitting fresh highs. This is from last week. They closed out the week at the highest closes in history. So the stock markets are moving in the direction that we have been anticipating because of the macro cycle. Looking at the 18 to 20 year real estate cycle, everything is heading up and it goes crazy. Now, we do have to have corrections. I suspect that's going to happen in the first half of 2024 because this move has been phenomenal. Now, I don't want to go on about these too much because I've got a lot of altcoin stuff to get through, and really, I would say two massive things. Something really strong on a chart, looking specifically at these low points after cycle lows, and the same thing in reverse at the tops. That is a huge one, and we have to understand how the market sentiment works, which is why I want to show you the market sentiment. Now, I'm not trying to pick on anyone in particular. This is just what happens to all of us. We are human, and we're all going to make mistakes, and we could even miss it. So let's just continue to follow what happens on the chart as well. So the massive, massive signal, write this one down, is higher lows on extreme pessimism is a massive buy signal, and the same thing in reverse. You've got massive optimism at a lower top, a lower swing top, is an extreme sell signal. This is not a 100% guarantee. There are no 100% guarantees in the market, but the probabilities are so far on our side, it's crazy. Now, this always comes down to the analyst as well. Okay, so although we have rules, it's just how we interpret it in the market. So what we're looking at here, and I find the lows a little easier to pick up than I do with the tops. That's just me as an analyst, and I'm learning along the way, and we continue to improve. But this is the big call here. We had the banking crisis at the March low. What has all this got to do with crypto? It's the same thing. It's just all that human emotion that comes out in the market at these exact times. So we had the banking crisis. That was a major, extreme emotional, and I'm saying emotional, I'm emphasizing emotional because there was a lot of fundamentals that went wrong at that time. But the price chart, where the people are actually, the investors and traders are buying and selling, the price chart was a higher price than it was at the bear market cycle low. And it was higher than the previous low. So although this was extreme pessimism at this low, remember the news headlines across the world, no matter which country we're in, were talking about a banking crisis collapsing the entire market. Guess what? It was a higher low. The price was higher. That on a macro sense tells us that this market is getting ready for some big moves. I'm looking at this in terms of a macro picture. That's what happened. Yes, we have pullbacks, but on a macro picture, the market is now in new all-time high prices. Can you believe it? Just in March, we had a banking crisis that was expected to collapse the world. Didn't happen. Now, the same thing happens in reverse, which is what we're seeing with altcoins at the moment, and it takes time to play out. It's not a tomorrow thing. It's not a next week thing. It just takes time. So when you get that extreme optimism on the moves to the upside, and I'm not saying this was an extreme optimism, but when you get that in crypto, you get the move from the peak and then a lower high, and then the market starts to collapse from that point. This is usually extreme optimism compared to the previous top. Now, you guys might remember that from Bitcoin back in April and May of 2021. There was extreme optimism on the way up, and then when it dumped and came back into May, that was even more extreme optimism into that top. Basically just the headlines. Everything was going absolutely bonkers for Bitcoin to go to 80 or 100K. But guess what happened? Well, we know now that the market collapsed. And at that time, you might have remembered I was on some other YouTube channels just saying that it didn't seem like it was the top or the move that needed to get us to that top because the market was just slowing down into all of that extreme optimism. And you can see it now in the charts. And you can also see it from the market sentiment at the time. And that's what's happening right now for cryptocurrencies. So that's what we've got in terms of the bottoms and the tops. That is a huge rule that I use for my own trading on a macro sense. And it's helped me out a lot along the way. It helped me, I was able to buy a lot of Bitcoin at that March bottom because it gave me the signal that this market is on, but the majority think the market is going to collapse. This is sort of stuff that we posted out to our members in TIA Premium. Check it out. Link is in the top of the video description right here. So that's happened across the board. NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, there is your banking crisis. Here is your Dow Jones as well, banking crisis, massive fear. I don't think those lows are going to get broken now. We're in new all-time high territory. So for Bitcoin, we are in the macro cycle here. We are off a few percent as we lead into this close. I think we're roughly about a third of the way through the run to the upside. And I say roughly because I don't have the exact answers. We're just trying to understand what the market is telling us and then use that to our advantage to forecast the future and then put our bets on basically what we plan to buy and sell. So I think there's roughly a third, well, I think we're roughly a third in and we have roughly 2/3 to go before we then get the move to the downside. Now you might even see this as we're 25% into the 4-year cycle if you include the low to the low. So if you've got a year up, maybe we've got roughly 2 more years up and then a year down just for the 4-year cycle because we're only measuring low to low. So basically a quarter of the way through a full 4-year cycle. So that's a macro look there. Now, I've covered these tops and how that works. We are leading into this close. We're about 17 minutes away. And remember what we looked at here when it came to the close itself. Last week we closed above the 50% and we just have not seen the follow through. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight weeks up. And if you use another one of our Gann rules, 7 to 10 bars, no matter which time frame we're looking at, typically you'll see at least a pause, sometimes a reversal on or within that 7 to 10 bars to the upside in a significant move. So it comes down to the analyst and how you learn how to use these rules, which will tell you what the market is going to do next. So it doesn't happen overnight, but continue to implement them and you'll see the rules happen in real time. And you never know 100% if it is going to happen, but you start to see some of those signals come through. This could be one of those where the market might, in the next 16 minutes now, close underneath this 50% level. So last cycle, the market ran up really strong, closed underneath it, attempted it again. You can see here, closed on it, rejected, closed on it, rejected. And then we had to wait and build up again until the halving. And then we tested that 50% again before it took off. And when it took off that time, that's retail mania. Retail mania was in the game and it was just going to skyrocket from that point. The previous cycle to that, we had the same deal. We had the market close above and then the following week close below. We had a bit of a scare that week as well. You can see that we had a quick dump and then the market tried to recover, took some more weeks off, and then climbed back and tested the 50% again. The halving was just a couple of weeks later, but this to me looks more similar to what's happening right now. We had a nice strong run up into the 50% level after a reasonable consolidation. And then the scare week, which is potentially this week here, market's going to take some time, maybe another scare or two over the next couple of months. We take some more time to recuperate and then test that 50% level again, at which point we won't see prices come underneath the 50%. So we won't see prices underneath 40K. So in this case, I suspect we'll probably see prices underneath 40K. Just my hunch at this point in time based on what we're currently seeing. And we can see that on a short-term price chart as well. We're looking at the daily here. You guys that love your RSI, you can see that lower tops coming in on the relative strength index. Meanwhile, through that same period, you had higher prices. Now, what does that mean? Well, here is your bearish chart, and it's your regular divergence. Higher prices, lower tops on the RSI. Essentially, that just means that the strength is running out to the upside, even though you're seeing higher prices. So you're just not getting that follow through that we were once getting, that extreme excitement into those first moves. So we just have to wait and see, of course, but what I'm reading from this is it just needs time again to recover before it can go on its next move. Now we've covered worst case scenarios to the downside. We've covered time frames of how long this will take. And I mentioned it earlier as well, looking into that first quarter of 2023. We know from the market, in particular, Bitcoin and the stock markets, they love March dates. It doesn't have to happen every year, but March has been a very significant time for extreme lows. We had the banking crisis this year. We had COVID in 2020. We've seen March have significant lows in the past. You can see back from 2017 when the market was on this huge bull market, March was the month that it rejected at the previous old all-time high and put in its higher low before it went on to another major run. Now you could go through 100 years of data for the Dow Jones, S&P. Of course, you don't want to see me do that in this video because we've done it before. But the point is, the markets love March as a low. So keep that in mind as we head into next year. But what could be the reason for this low? Well, who knows for sure, but the media will definitely come up with some sort of answer after the fact. Now, we're leading into some of the highest Bitcoin fees that Bitcoin has seen since the top. So there could be a reason here, and I just put this together this morning as some sort of potential narrative that would maybe explain at least a small section of it, that if you've got these fees here, so we're looking at miner revenue here, the blue line, it's at the levels that it was at back at the peaks of 2021. So if you're a miner, you're not here like a Michael Saylor. You're not trying to hold on forever because this is what you think the world is going to shift to. You're essentially selling Bitcoin to pay back your fees, pay back your electricity, your mining equipment, your rent, your employees. And if you have some of the highest revenue since those highs, maybe you've been saving a little bit through this stage, you might try and sell off a lot more now at some of the highest revenues. Doesn't mean Bitcoin has to be at the highest price. They're just making a really good profit margin at this point in time, relatively speaking to history. So I'm just putting 1 and 1 together. Maybe it equals 2. To me, it seems pretty straightforward. I would do that if it was my business. I'm thinking, well, I've got some of the highest revenue I've seen in 2 years since the bull market. What if we don't see any higher prices? If, of course, I don't understand what's going on in the cycle, and as a chartist and I'm just running a business, I would say, let me try and get a few more profits now. That could continue to send the price down, at least in the short term. We recuperate, we bring in the next round of retail, of smart money, of whatever money, right? And then we start to head up later next year. So now we come to the emotional part of understanding the markets. This is what I've been putting together over many, many years. So I'm trying to share with you years of my own experience and hopefully condense it enough so that you can still understand it, but then you have to put it into your own action as well, because it takes time. It was hard to believe it at first, and it's hard to believe it, using it once or twice, but as you use it month after month, year after year, it becomes much, much easier. So this was last week's video, and I have not changed my shirt since Friday. So looking at what's going on in the markets, the influencers returned at the previous peak in November, roughly around the 10th or 11th. We saw a lot more people come out of the woodworks. They had their YouTube channels basically dormant for months, and then they start posting about cryptocurrencies. Happens at the peaks. So for me, that's a bit of a red flag, thinking it might not be the exact top, but I think we're probably getting close to the top. And as I pointed out in that video, the market in some cases, some of the bigger runners here like Injective had been up 800%. You choose whatever altcoin you want. Sure, you've got some that made even bigger gains. I don't care. The point of this is that we're trying to understand where these tops might be coming in using market sentiment. So if you don't like market sentiment or it's too ambiguous for you, don't use it. But for me, I really love this. So influencer return there. Then they started to feel things in their jellies at the peak. And guess what? Over the last couple of days, we have not seen the markets boom like their jellies had thought. And yes, maybe some of the coins went up a little bit, but essentially when we look at the charts, they have gone nowhere. Here is the influencers returning. Markets fell off once the influencers returned. Needed to have a little bit of a recovery here, and then it went on its final boom. Now, like I said, that looks like a huge run compared to what you had in the past. But when you look at it in terms of a percentage from when they returned to where it is at that point, it's only a 50%, and now it's down to about a 40%. But this whole move here was roughly 800%. This is what will happen over and over again throughout the crypto and altcoin bull market. It's the same thing over and over again. They will come back. Some of the cryptos will go up a little more, but it will look like a lot for newbies coming into the market. And, gains of 50% are pretty crazy. But when you look back on it, you think, well, there's a lot of people who have been buying at those lower prices and are basically selling out now and selling into these pumps here, little bit by little bit, not their whole bag. So I think that's what newbies tend to do. They'll buy everything at once and then try and sell everything at once. But if you've got a bit of a plan, you can start to sell into this hype and get rid of your shitcoins in the face of people feeling their jellies and other influencers returning to the market, because it happens over and over again. And for you guys who love your patterns with candlesticks, look at that particular pattern. Doesn't mean it's definitely going to collapse, but just look at that. You got the market running up, lower close. You got the market running up again into your dragonfly doji, and it closed down. And then you got it happening again. So eventually these things do like to come down. This might continue up and just try to take out that top again. But it is potentially running out of steam just from what I have seen over the course of many, many years. Like I said, it doesn't mean that it's the exact top, but it's typically around that area that you want to get out of these markets, especially when you've got other accounts not having a go at any of these people, because some of them do get a little bit triggered here, but they are basically just like bullish happy all the time. And so when you can put those two things together, you can see that there is the case that many of them think the market will never fall. So you've got a couple of options here. Why don't we see a bit of a hammer and a bit of a drop down into the 30s? I'm looking at my own analysis here, but many of them just don't see it. As you can see here, I just don't see it. And they just see only bullish stars. They see laser eyes all the time, and they think their markets are always going to go up. And so when you look at this compared to the price where it was, look at it on a longer term time frame and look at the times here, you start to put it all together and you can see these markets are beginning to roll over since the time they talked about it. And it's really gone nowhere for a couple of weeks now. If you go back to sort of that 7th of the beginning of the month, the market's basically at the same, with emotional rides up, emotional rides down, and up and down and back to the beginning. And I suspect Eventually, it'll probably roll over, we get to recover, and then the good times happen again, but in a much, much bigger way. So this is another quick look at Solana as well. This was where the influencers returned. That's the 11th. Market hasn't gone anywhere. It's basically at the same price now. They got their feelings in their jellies at the next top, and then I suspect we'll have a little bit of a rollover only if we start to break down from the key lows again. So these are our Gann swing indicators. This is our swing bottoms here using the Gann swing indicator. Link to that is in the top, somewhere in the top of the video description here, a 7-day free trial so you can learn how to use that tool there to give you the insights as to where the trend is going. Now, also in the videos of last week, we looked at time frames. We've been up for roughly 90 days, so it's about 3 months. The market, in general, these markets love to do these turns at 1, 2, 3 months, so 30, 60, 90 days. And if you can follow along with that, you'll start to see where these tops come in. So now you're putting time together along with price targets, along with market sentiment. And when I get to put all these together, that is really exciting to me. That's what it gets. And when I can put these together, that's when I get the feelings in my jellies that I think something is happening in the market, something different to what happened before. It's not a this time is different. It just means the trend, I think, is changing. And I'm going to continue to follow along with the price charts, looking at my swing indicator and of course my time frames as well. So I've had a little run into the top here. Let's see what happens next. If this starts to break down from the previous bottoms here, you could probably say that we are going to go on another run to the downside for roughly 30, 60, 90 days. Just keep watching those time frames. And the influencers will probably tell us to buy the dip after a couple of days, as they typically do. But I think the time frame has a lot longer to move, just like the other times when it moves to the downside. We covered this for Bitcoin, we've covered it for other altcoins, and typically it's not just a 2-day reversal and then it's going to blow up and give you another 800% because the market's been up for roughly 90 days, as we looked at here with Injective as well. This has been a long move to the upside, many, many, many weeks since the June bottom, then the January bottom, that's June 2022, mind you. Then you've got your next June in 2023, you've got your March bottom. So you can see this thing's been up for a long time. And markets have to rest. They have to digest the move that's happened. That does not mean that I think the altcoin season is over entirely and the cycle's done and it's over for the next few years. I just think that this is now the next best time over the next couple of months to start to accumulate that next portfolio. So I'm excited for the re-entry opportunity, but I have to be patient not to get swept up in the next few days, maybe even few weeks, where I think these markets will continue to test some of these prices, and eventually I think they'll start to roll over. So I'm looking forward to Q1 to scoop up again and then get going for the bigger bull markets, the biggest altcoin season that we have seen for many years and the big one that we're all anticipating. So I've given you 3 massive, massive takeaways from this video. Go back and watch it, save it, bookmark it, share it with your friends and family. We're looking at price, we're looking at time, we're looking at market sentiment, and I've given you some of those indicators I look for. Nothing against the people whatsoever. It's just some of them get these peaks really, really right in terms of where the excitement is going. Doesn't mean their trading is right. I just think they get the market sentiment spot on, and I like to use them myself. You use them, don't use them, completely up to you. Here's another quick look. Casper looks like it's on its way down. It's just broken those swing bottoms. That's how I use the Gann swing indicator. So check that link out in the top of the video description. 7-day free trial for the Gann swing indicator. Again, breaking down here again. This just continues to happen across the board. Cedarfire looks absolutely amazing as well. The jelly fields were at the lower swing top. So there is your signal again. Look at that. Roughly around the end of last week, if I get that one right. There you go, the feelings in the jellies, 15th there. Cedarfire, here is your top, starting to break down. I dare say this will probably come back under the $3 mark. 20 seconds to go, and it looks like Bitcoin will close underneath the 50% level. We have roughly 16 weeks to go until the halving, so about 4 months. It doesn't mean that this cycle is over whatsoever. I just think we have a little more time to digest the move. We've been looking to price targets to the downside on previous videos, looking at the worst case scenario, and there you have it. The week has closed underneath the 50% level. Continue to watch the channel, like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and let me know in the comments section, pinned comment there, your question of the day, and I'll see you over on Twitter for more updates. Stay safe out there in the markets. Don't get swept up in the hype. There is fantastic opportunities out there. And if you are a trader, I think you got to get your plan nice and spot on, because we'll probably see some of that volatility to the downside as well. Appreciate everything. Thanks again, guys. See you at the next one. Till then, take care and peace out.